Hi, and welcome to Across the Desk. Well, there's a new poll that came out this week from a place called Change Research, and what it shows is that when people think of Kevin Stitt, the first word that comes to mind is corruption. Real quick before we get started, if you like the content of this channel, the best way you can support it is to go down here to the little blue tile and click subscribe. Subscribing is really the best way you can support the work I do. Also, go to my website at kitfairchild.com where you will find information to other merchandise like my book 10 Lessons of Conservative Cowardice, as well as other videos out on YouTube. So yeah, a poll by Change Research came out, and in it was some really interesting data. One was that when people thought of Kevin Stitt, the word most associated with him was corruption. And now the most wildest thing and interesting thing about this is whenever you look at who they polled, 61 to 62% were Republicans. 28% were Democrats and the rest were independents. More than twice the number of those polled were Republicans in this poll. And in it, out of all of them, more than 60% said, yeah, he's pretty corrupt. Now, a majority of these also said that cleaning up corruption at the state level was important to them, as well as the polling. The interesting thing was, when it was weighted with these Republicans being more than twice of the poll, 2/3 of this poll were made up of Republicans. When they asked them, hey, are you more likely to vote for Stitt or Joy? In this poll, she was under 8 points. 8 points under Stitt. Less than double digits. That's amazing considering how in January, Stitt led more than 30 points on Joy. And now she's been able to bring that down to 8 points. And why has she been able to do that? Well, because of all the corruption Kevin Stitt has. And it's everywhere, really. And this Change Research poll shows just that. Like, we can go through all this. And you can start with the tribes. When Kevin Stitt got elected to office, one of the first things he did was to go after the tribes. And go after that gaming compact, because one of the things is they're not paying us enough. They need to pay us more money. So they wanted to go from like 4% to 7%. Well, the tribes balked at this, of course, and fought him on it. So what did Kevin Stitt do? Well, he waged a war against the 35 Native American tribes of Oklahoma. I did a show about it several years ago, and I like to call it Stitt's Last Stand, because pretty much went about like you would think going against 35 tribes would go. He got his butt handed to him, and lost $2 million in lawyers' fees to lose it. Oh, and 1/3 of the state as well when McGirt came around and said, hey, those reservations, they're not Oklahoma anymore. So that really got into Stitt's craw a little. It really put it to him. So what did he do? He took more taxpayer money, millions of taxpayer money, and spent it on a PR and legal campaign to get some of that power back. Spent it on lawyers, and spent it on a slick campaign to make those reservations look poverty-ridden and just completely lawless. Which they weren't. But they really emphasized the lawlessness, right? Because we're talking McGirt again. So they took millions of dollars, paid these lawyers, and places like OCPA to go after the tribes. And that's exactly what he did, in a gross display of corruption. Taking taxpayer dollars to do it. The other interesting note that happened just this year is when he violated ethics laws on campaigning in Oklahoma when it comes to the huge in-kind donation that he gave to the Attorney General, John O'Connor. See, earlier this year he put out an ad saying one of my greatest accomplishments this year was putting Attorney General O'Connor in office. See? And that's strange to say because one, the Attorney General's office is an elected office. And the guy in there, Mike Hunter, well, he had to resign. Why did he have to resign? Well, he got caught up in a big old scandal, extramarital affair stuff, so he resigned. So Kevin Stitt could put his yes man in there. And it goes on to a few things of Kevin Stitt and corruption, and kind of like who Kevin Stitt likes. You see, when you look at people like Ryan Walters, and you look at people like the guy he put in the AG's position, O'Connor. When you look at these guys, well, they got skeletons. And they got things in their closet. Well, you know who knows what's in those closets? Kevin Stitt. And you know what Kevin Stitt likes to do with those things? Well, he likes to hold it over their heads. You see, hey, look, I got this stuff on you. You do my bidding, and I won't have to release this to the public and ruin you. Because that's what Kevin Stitt likes to do, you see. And he's got a slick way to do it, using millions of taxpayer money to pay places like OCPA to put out attack ads by people like Ray Carter to go after these people in slick campaigns to try to ruin somebody, try to ruin their reputation by throwing a bunch of media out there. And the slick thing about it is, you know, some of this stuff is true, so it's not really defamation or anything else. So he just digs up all these skeletons and he holds them over their heads so he can get his way. Hey, you do my bidding, I won't release these. I won't open the door to your closet and let your skeletons out. That's how Kevin Stitt plays. And so you can understand why he likes using unethical people a lot. He uses them and puts them into places of power. He puts them into positions in his cabinet. He puts them into positions as secretaries of things. Because that way he can have things over them and they'll have to do his bidding. It's extortion, exactly. Yeah, it is. But that's kind of what he does. And he does it to his own people so that he can retain power. And that's kind of what he's done with the Attorney General. So yeah, he paid all this money in ads pretty much, and half of his ad, 30 seconds of these ads, were saying how great the Attorney General O'Connor was and how it was one of his accomplishments. Yeah, well, it's highly illegal, highly unethical, and very corrupt. And so there you go. Now, and that's probably one of the least of these things. One of the least of these items, because here we go. One of the biggest ones, the biggest probably corruption scandal is Epic. Epic charter schools. And if you haven't kept up with this one, then let me tell you, it's a doozy. So you got a few guys. You got a CFO and a couple of owners who started this thing who had this scheme on privatizing education. You know, like Ryan Walters. Well, these guys opened up a different private company to help administer the public charter school that they set up. Because you set up Epic as a charter district, and then they have this private company that helps administer them, and then they funnel money into that and take millions of dollars that way, like 20, 30, 40 million like that of taxpayer money that should go to public education, go into these guys' pockets, you see. So that's how it works. And so that's what happened with Epic. Well, you know, there was an audit done, and they said, hey, man, there's millions of dollars missing. There's millions of dollars going to the owners, and they're really doing this in an ethical way. And what's up with the $10 million that went to a school in California of Oklahoma, taxpayer money, that should have gone to the public education system here in Oklahoma? Well, here you go. These guys are now facing charges finally and everything else, but not because of anything Kevin Stitt did, not because of anything A.G. O'Connor did, but because of what the Oklahoma County DA did. David Prater, not even a state official, because you know, Stitt took the money. He did, because what these guys in Epic did, they took a whole bunch of money, and then they turned around, took a lot of that money, and paid it back, right? Here's some kickback to you guys. You know, senator here, legislator there, here's a governor there, OCPA, here's a few million for you, be my attack dog. Guess what Ray Carter does? Yeah, you know, defends the charter schools. That's exactly what they do. So that's what they did with Epic, and so finally it's coming down, but you know, Kevin Stitt tries to wash his hands of it. He's got that Carly Atchison who's all over the place lying for him every day, trying to cover his butt because, you know, Kevin Stitt's a corrupt guy. It's just what it is. It's just what he does. And yeah, that's the biggest thing right there. Epic. Tens of millions of dollars. The biggest misappropriation of taxpayer funds in the history of Oklahoma. Guys are probably going down for a while. We'll see. If Stitt's in office and these guys get convicted, I'm almost certain they'll get some kind of commutation. They'll probably, at the end of Stitt's term anyway, he'll probably pardon them. I'm almost certain he will. I'm almost positive. I'll put money on it that that's what he'll do, because, again, Stitt's corrupt. You know, and another thing, going back to this change research, when people were asked, hey, Joy signed this non-corruption pledge, Stitt didn't. Well, you know what? They were more likely to want to vote for her. And that includes what I'm saying here, 62% Republicans in this poll. Nearly 2/3 of the poll people in here are Republican. And they're saying this. This has to tell you something. This is big news. You know, because when it comes to Kevin Stitt's corruption, we're not even close to being done. This isn't even close. We've had 10 minutes here, and I've really only touched the tip of the iceberg. Only talking about several tens of millions here. We haven't hit close to everything yet. And that's got to tell you something. Because here we are. Another one of Kevin Stitt's things, just like going after the Indian tribes. He's doing it again. He's doing it again now, and what's he doing? He's going after Tulsa Public Schools, see? Because there's this culture war to fight, and that's what conservatives love to do. Every time they're losing, you'll know they're losing. Now, a good way to know when a conservative's losing, they'll switch to the culture war. Why? Well, the culture war is a great way to divide Americans. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're being divisive by doing this. That's exactly what they do when they come out saying, hey, these schools are being all divisive, they're putting the politics into it, teaching racism and coddling gay people. It's culture war. It's about us and them. And these are American citizens they're talking about us and them about. And that's exactly what they're looking at. They're looking to divide. They're looking to cause anxiety. They're looking to create energy. And that's what they're doing. And hopefully that energy will benefit them and they'll gain some power out of it. That's exactly what they're looking for. So when Kevin Stitt pays millions of taxpayer dollars, which is what he's doing right now, spending millions of taxpayer dollars in a legal and PR campaign against Tulsa Public Schools. It's exactly what he's doing. It's so divisive. And he comes out, because he comes out, we're going to audit Tulsa Public Schools. And there's a big old PR campaign on social media and everywhere else. Why would you do that? Why would you come out and be, blah, 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 because you're playing politics? You see, if you really just wanted to do the work and get the audit through, you just go through the motions, get the audit done, audit them, blah, 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 wouldn't make a big deal about it. But here they are, bells and whistles, making a big deal. Tulsa Public Schools, CTR from some teacher third-party group that wanted to teach teachers something, and even to the kids. This wasn't even taught to kids. The thing he's talking about, going at them for CTR training, is what it is. They went to a training deal where you do your professional development hours. So they went to this deal, and in there they talked about race or certain aspects of it, and somebody felt uncomfortable, which is part of this HB 1775 law that's so vague. What makes you uncomfortable? Almost anything. Talking about the Tulsa race riot would be uncomfortable. Might not be able to teach about the Tulsa race riot because of this law. And that's exactly what they want, because people that put this law in, like Senator Rob Standridge, they're pretty much white Christian nationalists. It's exactly what they are. They want a whitewashed Christian nation. Exactly what they're after. And he's not alone. He's more vocal and extreme about it, but it's exactly what Kevin Stitt wants. Why do you think he put in Ryan Walters? What do you think Ryan Walters is? He's also a white Christian nationalist. And it's the kind of history they want to perpetuate. You see, their history. That's what they want to show. Something that says, hey, America's always been good, and we love the slaves. Something weird like that. They do this weird stuff all the time. So you have this audit going on where Stitt's being corrupt again, spending millions of dollars. It's probably to OCPA. I'm sure Ray Carter has a story about it. Go look at it. Ugh. And that's not even all. And here we are near the end of my time. And there still hasn't hit Swadley's. $12 million to Swadley's to put in these janky restaurants in our state parks that went nowhere, that are a lieutenant governor our lieutenant governor signed off on all this stuff. Signed off on it. Here you go. He needs to go. I'm sorry, Matt. You screwed up. You showed poor leadership. Very poor. You let them walk all over you and you signed off on purchase orders that you knew were bogus, but you did it anyway because the power these other people had scared him. So that's what he did. He became a conservative coward and signed off on all this stuff. And in Swadleys, all of a sudden, oh wow, all this $12 million, what the hell is going on? And so now they're going to claw back. Oh, we're going to claw that back. Just kind of like the Class Wallet scheme. Class Wallet, which I talked about on a couple of weeks ago on another show with the corruption of Ryan Walters. Well, that all bleeds into Stitt's corruption. That $8 million Class Wallet scheme where people bought barbecuers and dishware and recliners instead of school supplies. And it really wasn't even for that. It was federal money designed to mitigate COVID so public schools could stay open during a pandemic. And they took that money. And that's not even all. We have this DeMarco guy who's been the PPE czar, and now he's over some kind of medical deal. And what does he do? He was a CFO of an oil company. Wow, this guy's got some experience for real. But you know what his experience was when he was a PPE manager? Misplacing $5 million of that COVID money. We don't even know where it went. Don't even know. It wasn't spent on anything, but they can't account for it either. So there's $5 million under this guy's watch that's just missing. Don't know where it went. So there we have it. Just the tip of the iceberg of Kevin Stitt's corruption. And the big deal about a poll that came out saying how many people know it. Hopefully it makes an effect. Hopefully over the next couple of months, people like me, the Oklahoma Project, the Oklahoma Democratic Party, and others can get the message out. Kids, that Kevin Stitt is corrupt. He's corrupt. And he needs to go. He's a danger. He's an authoritarian. He has not the right ideals for the United States of America. Not even close. Well, this is Kid with Across the Desk. And we'll see you next week.